Okay, so now that my microphone is on, we can actually record this. I just recorded this whole thing with my microphone off. So let's try this one more time. We're going to be taking a look at activity 223 today. We did look at 222 the other day. That looked at server vulnerabilities. So it looked at the fact of seeing what was accessible to a server that was not secured. In this case, it was an IIS server. It was publishing web pages, or I should just say content on the internet. But their file transfer protocol, the ports were open, nothing was secured, there was no login for it, it was anonymous with no password, and it just allowed anyone that wanted to access to this server and to the files located on it. We saw in this activity, it actually showed suspicious files within the logs. It showed mybadfile.htm, which was one, and then it showed user access information, which anyone could get a hold of by accessing the system because everything was saved in the default logs folder. So that was just going through, okay, what's possible? What's possible to access as a hacker to a non-secure system? So today we're going to be looking at the server overall, looking at different roles that you can implement and actually playing around with some of them. So first off, per usual, you might want to start spinning up this lab now. It does take a couple minutes to load up, so as we're talking about it, if you start it up, you don't get to worry about waiting for it to load when we actually get into it. So we're going to be looking at analyzing this server first. We do have the same topology as we did for the 222 activity. So we have the same login machine IP address that connects to a remote server. It's got that same IP address as well, the 172.30.0.15, and then connects to the internet. So let's see, target window, same name and everything, perfect. So the IIS manager, so this is just a good thing to know. I'm going to highlight it on mine. So it's a part of the Microsoft's server manager tool. We're going to look into the server management side in here. We actually did in class today, but we're going to play around with a couple more of its features and what you can actually implement with it. So it allows you to just administratively manage a web server. It's a tool through Microsoft. There's many other tools you can use for web servers if you're doing your own hosting. This is one that is just installed on Microsoft Server 2016. So it lets you set up the structure, all that fun stuff. It includes logging, which is great, and then it has services such as FTP. But you got to be careful with these. We saw in the last exercise, if it's not secured, anyone can use this service and transfer files to and from your system. Okay, so we launched that, open the connections folder. So I'm going to switch over to the lab here. I'm going to be reading through the directions as I do it, but I'm going to be implementing it on the lab itself. So we're in the environment that they give us. I'm going to go to the connections folder. And in here, I don't have a connection for that. Something's wrong here. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to load this lab up again because something might be wrong with this one. Okay, so while that's loading, I'm just going to talk about this piece and go into this a little bit further. So we're going to actually go into the server manager. We did this in class. In accessing this, it's down at the bottom. We looked at it today. We looked at all the different roles today. It gives us that server manager dashboard. When you're installing server, when you're using server on your system, no matter what version, typically the server manager dashboard pops up on startup. In this machine, it does not. It must be disabled. I'm assuming they just disabled it because they want you to actually go into the icon server manager in the taskbar and access it. But typically it will pop up as you start up your system. So in looking at this while this lab loads, we got some different features here. We have our dashboard, which is the main screen, gives us a quick start, anything else going on with our system, and then some main pieces that we can configure here. So configure this local server. That's step one of what you would do in configuring a server. If we just installed server on our machine and wanted to configure some roles, we would look right at this box here. It lets you add roles and features, add other servers to manage. So if you have more than one, create server groups, and then connect to cloud services. So we've talked about this a little bit today. If you're using Azure cloud environment, if you're using different cloud printing or different cloud-based services, you can actually link them here. This server right now, it's got a couple listed on the side. On this left-hand side, it has our local server. We can go into there and configure some things. Any other servers that we've connected to this, it'll allow us to see them here and actually remote into them if we want to. We have the ADDS. If you are unsure what this is, it's the Active Directory Domain Services. So it allows us to create an Active Directory on our system. We have our DNS service, file and storage. This will allow us to create like storage pools in order to backup systems or just maintain storage on our server itself to disperse to people or have people access. On the school, you have the H drive that is managed by a file and storage service. So it gives you a networked drive, but it has to be housed somewhere. So it's housed on a server in some kind of storage pool. And then we have that IIS service. And then this is what we're actually going to be looking at. And it says it right here, the Internet Information Services Manager. So you're going to want to write this term down just so you have it. It's nice to know what IIS actually stands for. You can see this on the security exam as well. It is one of the main terms related to Windows services. So please make note of that. But we are going to, near the top of the server manager window, you can click on the tools and select that IIS. And that's just going to allow us to get into this piece itself. I'm going to switch back over to my lab so we can actually see what's going on here. I'll pause it until it's done loading. Okay, so mine did finish loading at this point. So I'm going to go right into this role like it asked me to. I'm going to go to connections. See, the reason it didn't work was because it said lab 119 up at the top here, not 110. So it must have just connected to something weird. Target window. This is going to let us access the server through a remote desktop connection. So then in here, once my toolbar loads at the bottom, yours should be the same. Don't worry about the network connection. This is just looking at how it's connected virtually. So you can hit yes, no, doesn't matter. I'm going to click on this server manager. And this is where my dashboard will pop up. So once this loads, you're going to see all my services pop up here. It's still loading, so that's why all of them aren't there. The IIS, what we're actually looking for, isn't there yet. But if you scroll down here, it'll actually give you just a green or a red, pretty much if something's going right or something's going wrong with the server. So it's kind of nice to pay attention to these. So I'm going to click on that IIS. It's going to give me this page here. It's just telling me it's online, nothing's going on, counters are started. The first piece it's going to have us do is actually go over to Tools. And let's see. We want to click on that Internet Services. So this will give us access to the manager itself. And okay, so here we go. I'm going to make this full screen so we can see it. So the IIS manager manages web configurations such as directory browsing, log file location. Other services such as FTP can be managed in either this or the server manager below. Okay, so we have that local host. This is just telling us what our connection is. Connect to local host, connect to server, connect to a site. So it gives us different tasks we can perform. And then it looks at some online resources. So we're going to be looking through a couple of these today. Let's see. So the first, if an attacker can explore and map a server directory, I'm going to switch over to here real quick. Structure, it gives the attacker valuable foothold on a system. So we saw this in our activity 222. As soon as they could access that directory structure or access those logs, they had the upper hand on things. So while directory structure knowledge, they're able to locate sensitive files and pinpoint strategic locations for depositing malware. So if they know where things are, they can put things wherever they want. If they know where log files are located, they can file transfer files to your system and then delete the log that it ever happened. On the other hand, the proper configuration of a web server can inhibit an attacker's ability to browse the directories remotely. Pretty much, if it's too secure, someone that needs to access it remotely won't be able to access it remotely. So there's kind of a gray area between, Okay, how strict do I need to be with enforcing policies versus the accessibility? That comes the CIA triad, accessibility versus security. So taking a look at that, we've already looked at this. This is where it comes into play. So let's take a look here. Follow the steps below to use the IIS Manager to disable directory browsing. So I'm going to fade back to here in the left panel of the IIS Manager. Select target window. Okay, we're in there. Perfect. Left, I'm going to go all the way over here. To view its home page in the middle of the window. Okay, so we got its home page right here. Target window home. This is the starting point for all security management. So this will let us actually manage this page. What does this say over here? I want to see this. I think it just says secure. Oh, secure labs. Okay, so this is just the domain that it's accessing for this target window. Okay, the center panel shows the area for FTP or file transfer protocol. So FTP authentication. So all this is FTP stuff. And services up and running. Okay, so we have different things. We have the FTP, the IIS, and the management. This is everything that supports how files are actually sent and received to the system and how we can block things out. So in the left panel, I'm going to hit that down arrow. I'm going to go to sites. So the sites actually give us, okay, the default website and then the FTP site. They're two different because one is like a public facing website and the other one is the file transfer protocol accessibility site. So this makes it so people can actually send and receive files to, which typically the default website would not have access to FTP and the FTP site would be the only one that allows that exchange. So to view the default website's homepage configuration, click on default website. All right. So this is all the stuff for just the default site. We see the directory browsing icon in the middle. Right here. Okay. Take a look at the right-hand action panel. They'll give you options to change the state of directory browsing. Okay, so if we click on it, we don't even have to double click. We can just go back to that. So click on it. It gives us actions over here. This just lets people know whether they're allowed to browse the file directories on the server or not. So if the option shown is disable, then directory browsing is currently enabled. So what do we got here? Open, bindings, application, start, stop, browse. I don't even see this. If it reads enable, then the directory browsing is currently disabled. Manage website, actions, advance, start, stop. I'm going to go into here instead. Oh, it's right here. That's why we had to double click on it first. Now we get those actions. So disable means that it's currently enabled. So it is currently enabled. If it reads enable, it's currently disabled. Click disable to disable the directory browsing. So it's currently enabled. I'm going to disable it. Directory browsing has been disabled. Perfect. Number 9 is done. You can take a screenshot right here just to save that number 9 has been completed. Check the website to confirm that forceful browsing has indeed been disabled. So we're going to have to minimize our actual server here. This is referencing back to what we did in 222. So it wants us to look at that forceful browsing. So in order to do that, let's think, how are we going to do that? So forceful browsing looks at the IP address. So our IP is 172.30.0.15. I wrote these down. If you did not write them down, you can reference your directions. We have dual monitors, so we can do that. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to go into my browser here. It's still here, it's just minimized. So I'm going to do 172, what's it, 15.0.30. Let's see, 172. 30.0.15, okay. Dot 30.0.15. And I'm going to hit enter. It should give me the hello world. That's standard. Now I'm going to do the /logs and see if it gives me anything. Okay, perfect. HTTP error 4314 forbidden. So the web server is configured to not list the contents of this directory. So I tried to do the forceful browsing by just forcing my way into the logs folder, and it will not let me access that because I just disabled it. Perfect. It is working. To show that it is working, you can take a screenshot right here. So number 10 says, were you able to get to the directory listing? Save a screenshot of the results. Take a screenshot of the top part of this page, and that way I will know you were able to successfully disable that. Okay, from the task bar, maximize the target window. You should see the IIS manager. I would hope so. I didn't X out of it. This is that manager still. Now that you've disabled directory browsing on the web server, cybercriminals can no longer forcibly browse the server directory. So this is just a prevention method from what we saw in activity 222. That was the stuff that could happen. Now we are preventing that from happening. Okay, so moving to the log file location. This is now going into step 11 on our directions. So log files are rich sources of information for hackers. And when hackers hack, they are often to careful cover their tracks in deleting or modifying log files. We discussed that. They try to delete what's in there. If you give them access to these log files, they can delete what's in there. For this reason, protecting log files is a major concern. One way to offer this protection is by moving the log file directory to a location that is harder to find. Rename your folders. If you use standard naming convention for folders or put it in the same directory that it was initially created in, anyone will have access to it. Same sense of you buy a router at Walmart. You bring that router home. You connect it to the internet. You leave the local login information as 192.168.0.1 with a login as admin. Anyone can access that. We looked at this when we were looking at searching IoT devices online and actually seeing their IP addresses and what their logins were. A lot of people leave these open. Same thing with log file locations, same thing with directories. If you leave them as they come, anyone can have access because that's the standard access method for them. Okay, so we are going to continue in this target window 1. So in our server, we're going to go to that IIS manager. In the left panel, we're going to go to the default website. All right, we're already there. Then we are going to click logging in the center. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go to logging right here. So I'm going to bring this piece up. In the log files section of the center panel, log file, okay. The directory field defines the location of the IIS log files. What's it currently set to? This is where you can just take a screenshot of the current right here. It's going to go to the system drive, whatever the main system drive is. This one happens to be C. It could be whatever you define it as. The int pub logs log files. Standard directory for this. That's not going to change unless you physically change it. So for the directory field, click Browse, and then navigate to and select C logs. All right, so we're going to go to C, not that one, C logs. And that's going to be the new file location. Note, it is best to create a folder that's tucked away under a hard-to-guess directory. So this is still under the C drive and it's still called logs, but it is different from the main, so at least it's switching it up a little bit. You could call it IT logs. You could call it safety logs, safety team, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a little bit different from logs is probably your best bet. This is just giving an example of, okay, it's not in that standard directory. At least we're changing it. So in the action panel on the right-hand side, click Apply. And to save the updated configuration of the website, and I'm just starting the location. Okay, so the changes have been saved. Now they'll all save there for the logs. Perfect. That is number 15. Check the website to confirm the log files reside in the new location. So we're going to minimize this window. We are going to go on the local machine. We're going to go back to the web browser. We're going to generate new log entries. So in order to do that, we have to try to access the server. So we're going to go to 172. I forget this button never works. 30. Okay, 015. I'll hit enter. Hello world. We can click on this. I don't think it's going to let us click go to anything else. It says use the browser to navigate to this and one or two files that reside there. But if we try to access things, it's just going to give us errors. So just going to leave it at that. Okay, we access something. This should give us a log file at least. We can try that hidden directory, I guess, as well. Let's see. This one. Okay, we still can't access it. Okay, this one's been removed, so we don't even have that in there. Text file. Hidden directory 1, we'll try that. Forbidden, that's fine. As long as it's showing us trying to access this, it'll create that log. And now we're going to go back into our server. Okay, in the File Explorer and Target Window 1, find the new location for logs. All right, so we saved it in C logs, so we just have to go to C logs to get to this. X out of these. PC, C, logs. Okay, so this is log events. I'm going to go into here because this is the actual log file. So let's see what we have here. Okay, we got me trying to, okay, it's a loopback, Mozilla, my text file. So it's got me trying to get the logs. It's got me trying to get the my text file, and then it's got me trying to get hidden directory, and I did it twice. It's showing the IP address that I was trying to get it from, so that's perfect. If I look back up at my, I'll switch this over so you can see. If I look back up at my topology here, the 172.30.06, that's my login machine. We have the one that we've been accessing. And actually in here, it's doing the 172.36. So it's saying, okay, someone, this address was trying to get this file path from the server. So it did log it, perfect, and it saved it in the new location. That's the main thing we were looking for here, to make sure that it saved it in this new logs location. All right, so that piece is good to go. Let's see. We moved that. So where is the log file's new location? Take a screenshot of this just so I can see, even if it's this first top piece, that way I can see, okay, local to C, logs, it's in this folder. It's this file here. Sorry, I had to pause there for a minute. All right, let's take a look. So we got that log file. That's where you're going to take a screenshot for number 16, just this top piece here. So number 17, close the Internet Services Manager, the IIS. We can get rid of that. I already did, perfect. And now you're going to talk with your partner. So pick anyone, doesn't matter who. You're going to take a look at these questions. You can answer them together. So I'm going to flip over to this so you can see what I'm talking about here. So why is it best to have the log file stored outside? I've already talked about this. You can rewind this video if you want to. That is fine, but discuss it with your partner. Is there any other reasons why you'd want to move them? What are your thoughts about using the folder name logs? You know my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? You can find a connection between this protection measure and the directory browsing. Explain your answer. So, in the sense of what we did yesterday versus what we did today, how are they connected? I've already talked about this as well. So you can discuss this, you can look at what I've already talked about, or you can come up with your own solution for this as well. Okay, so now that we've changed that log file location, so it is no longer there, let's remediate the FTP vulnerability. So we're going to remove it. We're going to make it so people can't transfer files to and from the system. So as configured, the FTP service represents a weakness in the system. It's great to have if you need it, but if it's not secured, then it is a weakness. The open guest account and liberal access permissions allows attackers to upload files to dangerous places. They can put it wherever they want. More than that, we should question the FTP service is even needed to operate and manage the website. It is, but not all the time. So while you're not using it, you can disable it. So if it's not really needed, then it should be removed. We're going to remove it apparently here. So we're going to go back into target window 1. Let's take a look. I'm already in there. Perfect. We're going to go to that server manager. I'm going to go to manage up in the top right hand corner. Remove roles and features. So it's going to open the wizard that allows us to do that. This is the same wizard that you're going to see in order to add roles and features as well. Obviously, you're just adding as opposed to taking them away. So on this wizard, we just got to hit next. Just going to follow us through. Okay, select a server. From the server pool, we only have one. Scroll through, locate the web server. Okay, so we're going to remove just the FTP version of the web server. So we're going to have to scroll down here. Go to this web service, hit the down arrow, and just this FTP is what we're going to remove. So we're going to uncheck it. That way it does take it away. We can hit next. Something else here. Okay, FTP. Features. Oh, we just hit next. We're not removing any features. Okay, so we want to check the restart. It's going to have us do that here. Do you want to allow automatic restarts? Yeah, we can do that. So under the web services, the FTP, FTP extensibility, and FTP service will be removed. It's just letting us know that, and then we can click remove. It's going to restart the service when it's done. So if you were trying to access any of these files, it wouldn't let you. Not that you are, but if somebody was accessing your website and trying to use FTP services, it would just shut down the page. Okay, so it's going to terminate the connection to our server itself because it's going to restart the whole thing. So if you have a server that has this service as well as like printer services or file share or anything like that, it's going to restart the entire server. So this is something that you would do outside of business hours to make sure that you're not interrupting anyone's workflow. It's going to bring us here. We can restart it. Oh, it's still restarting. Let's try one more time. So as this is restarting, the next piece of this, I'll just flip over to these directions. So it wants us to verify that it actually stopped. And in order to do that, we have to use that FileZilla. So in using FileZilla, we can just open it up. If we try to upload from the login machine to target window, it should give us a message that says it can't do it because that service isn't enabled. So we're going to try it here. Okay, so we're in the server itself. So we're going to minimize this for now. It did restart. That's what we wanted it to do. So the only reason we opened it up was so we knew it successfully restarted. Now we can go on FileZilla. Type in that as our host, 172.30.0.15, username, anonymous, and then quick connect. Could not connect to server. Okay. All right, could not connect to server. So, oh, maybe if I spell anonymous right. ANONYMOUS. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Waiting to retry. Connecting. Connection failed. Could not connect. I believe that's the error it's supposed to give us. Let's see. Be patient. Oh, Turner said, oh, okay. So it just returned it quicker than normal. Perfect. So it can't connect. Reason being, when you're trying to connect the host, FileZilla automatically knows to go through your FTP protocol in order to access this. And because it's not active and you've now disabled it, you can't transfer those files. So you can take a screenshot just of this status here where it said attempting to connect, connecting, attempt failed, could not connect to server. Right there, you can take that screenshot. So now that you've addressed all three vulnerabilities, the directory browsing, log file location, and the FTP services, that's everything we addressed in activity 222, or vulnerabilities we found in 222. We're going to try some different pen tests in order to verify that these measures actually worked. So down below, this is the piece that you are going to do with a partner, and I'm going to bring it up here so you can see it. All right, so you don't have to do it in your computer science notebooks. The best part is I already have this number written out for you in your worksheet. So what you're going to do with your partner is write a brief report to describe the remediation strategies you took for each of the three vulnerabilities in this activity. Your report should address the following questions. What vulnerability did you address? Which admin tool did you use to address this vulnerability? And how the configuration changes you set actually made it possible for remediation. So you're just going to address these three. We've walked through all three in this video. We've looked at all of them. We've looked at it, even says it up top here, the directory browsing, log file location, and FTP services. Those are the vulnerabilities, the fact that you could actually forcefully browse to files, the fact that you could see where the log file location was, access the log files, and change them if you wanted to. And then the fact that FTP was not secure, so anyone could access it. So that's going to be one of your vulnerabilities. Which admin tool did you use to address the vulnerability? Just explain to me what you did here. How did you make it so this wasn't open? How did you make it so people couldn't access this, etc.? And then summarize what you changed in order to make this happen, or what someone could change in order to make this happen. Essentially, it's going to be a how-to report. You're going to use the template that I gave you, one for each. It's going to be a how-to report on if this happens, how do you fix it? Or if you set up a server, how do you make sure this doesn't happen? But like I said, that template is available. Use that. You're going to do one template for each problem. You can work on this with a partner. In working on this with a partner, your language choices should be very tech savvy in here. You should not say going to the folder to access the file. You should say accessing the directory to access the blank 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 .log file, etc. So make sure you're very specific with what you're writing in here. It's going to be a very specific report. This is something you would do in industry to make sure that in remediating issues, you have logs on how to do everything. So check out this piece. This is the last part to this. The conclusion question we're actually going to discuss as a class. So you don't need to worry about that. It's just this last piece here. You can do it with a partner. Fill out those sheets that I gave you. They're already created reports. You just have to add the data to them. But if you need any assistance, refer back to this video and it can help you kind of walk through what we're doing.